Hi, this is Jake Northey back with another update from Creative Minds. Today we're going to be talking about feedback. Feedback, we mentioned in a lot of videos, it's central to a lot of the software processes that we implement, whether it's continuous delivery or iterative development, validated learning. A lot of what we're doing is trying to make our feedback loops as tight as possible so we can make sure that we're doing the right thing in software development. Feedback doesn't necessarily just flow once you start building these things. You really have to understand how feedback gets into those processes and implement a way to receive and understand that feedback. On the flip side, as individuals, if we believe that feedback's important, we should actually be giving feedback as soon as we have it. If you go into a restaurant and you have a good experience, leave a review. And so we have some principles for giving feedback. And number one is give feedback as soon as you have it. If you've got something that you think somebody should know, give that feedback. It can be hard to give negative feedback, of course, but it's important for people to receive feedback, and businesses and organizations to receive that feedback once they have it. Number two is that when you give feedback, just realize it's one perspective. It's your own perspective. So you might have some piece of feedback for let's say a bar and grill you go into and it's too loud for you and your family, and you go in there and you say, it's too loud in here. Well, you might find out that all the other people come there because it's so loud. They like the atmosphere and it might not be perfect for you. And so you might find that when you give that feedback, they'll just ignore it. Well, of course, that's what makes their place special, right? So just remember that this is an individual perspective you're giving feedback on. And so the next point I want to make is that once you give feedback, you shouldn't have any expectations as what's done with feedback. I've heard a lot of people say things like, oh, I'm not going to give feedback because they're not going to listen to it. Well, if you believe that feedback's important, then you should be giving it anyway, right? You should be giving it even though it's not going to be listened to, because you believe that feedback's important. And once you give that feedback, it's out of your hands. It's up to whoever you're giving it to do something with it, right? The final point here is negative feedback. When you're giving negative feedback, it's easy for people to get defensive, right? So be tactful when you're giving negative feedback. A lot of times it's good to start with, hey, what's working? What do you like? What part of the experience is really good? And then transitioning, hey, what's not matching that experience that you're having, right? What's not hitting that level of service that you're getting, or that level of experience of the rest of the software product, for instance, right? So be tactful with that negative feedback, and I think you'll see it's listened to a lot more. And then finally, on receiving feedback, when we're building our software processes, we're trying to make that feedback readily available, instantly available, and we want to make those feedback loops tight so we can make changes based on that feedback as soon as possible. So number one, I would say, is make it easy to give feedback. Put places in your product, on your website, talk to customers, right? Make it easy to get that feedback as soon as you can. Send out surveys through email, right? Do whatever you can to get feedback as fast as possible. Number two is make the path of giving the feedback to who can take action on that feedback as short as possible, right? When you got large organizations, you'll find maybe it's the sales engineers, it's the professional services organizations, the customer support teams that are getting that feedback, and it takes many steps, right? It's like a game of telephone is starting. Customer support hears something and they're like telling their boss, and their boss is like, oh, I should get over to the PM. Oh, but I'm busy doing this other stuff, right? And all of a sudden this feedback just falls into the nether, right? So what we want to do is we want to shorten that path as much as possible. If you've got software teams, if you got a multi-team project, software teams should be trying to get that feedback directly into their product owners, and when we're using Scrum, or directly into the team so they can take action on it immediately. But again, remember, a single piece of feedback isn't very valuable by itself. That's a single perspective. You want to start seeing a pattern of feedback. Everybody's having the same experience that they don't like. That's when I have to take action on this. This is something that's really important to a lot of people. We have to actually start moving in and fixing this issue. A lot of times feedback comes with its own solution. People won't tell you their problems, they'll tell you what they want the product to do, or they want the service to be like. And so what you need to do is find out what's the actual problem they have. If I'm a family and it's too loud for me, but actually the problem is really that my young kids don't like it loud, maybe we need a different solution. Maybe the solution that we come up with is, let's have a separate dining area for families. Remember, separate the problem from the solution, and the solution is what you own, right? As product managers, as product teams, we own the solution, but what we're looking for is problems and understanding problems. And then finally, be understanding. Sometimes you'll get really, really negative feedback, and people won't be tactful and they'll just start spewing, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, and it can be overwhelming. You're like, well, are we doing anything right here? Just realize that it's much easier for people to notice things that are wrong and give negative feedback than it is to give, positive feedback. So when people are giving you lots of negative feedback, just realize that means they care. They've taken the time to give that feedback. They must care enough to make positive change in your product. You'll find that you rarely hear from happy customers. A lot of times customers are happy, and when you're solving their problem, they've got other problems that they're focused on, right? So you don't hear about it, and you go to talk to them in 3 months or something like that. Hopefully it doesn't take that long. But you go to talk to them, they're like, oh yeah, it's working great. Hopefully that helps you work as individuals, giving feedback to others and receiving feedback. And for us, it's very important to get that worked into our software processes, and hopefully we can help you get some of that worked into your process as well. We hope you enjoyed the video today. For more tips and best practices in software development, please subscribe to our channel on YouTube and like this video.